Good day everyone, Grimmer here with another DCS video. And in today's video I will take another quick look at the Gazelle, specifically the SA342L version of this little scout heli in the 1.54 open beta version, and look at some of the differences between this second version of the Gazelle that is going to be added to the Gazelle module, as well as some flight model changes, and then look at the short mission showing the new armament options you get on the 342L. Since this is from the open beta client, the usual disclaimer of course applies. All this is subject to change and there may be a bug here and there. Now let's start with a word or two on some flight model changes to the Gazelle, both the L and the M version. Overall, the Gazelle is a lot easier to fly in this version of the module. The engine torque has been adjusted and you need less pedal input in a hover or slow speed maneuvering, making the helicopter more comfortable to fly, specifically with a twist handle. The anti-torque authority also has been reduced a bit and making the chopper a little less twitchy. But one thing that has not changed is the maneuverability of the helicopter and how precise you can fly with it. It is easier to get that precision out of it now though. And with the armament you get on the L version, you can also make use of this maneuverability a lot more. So let's talk about that. The L version of the Gazelle is something many have been waiting for, and I was also looking forward to it a lot, mostly because of the extra armament options the second version of this helicopter provides. While the M version that was introduced first is a dedicated anti-tank helicopter and can therefore only carry hot anti-tank missiles as armament, the L is more of a multi-role chopper and has more armament options. At the moment in the open beta, the L version of the helicopter can carry a 20mm M621 cannon, as well as a rocket pod with 8 68mm snap unguided rockets, which are similar to the 70mm Hydro rockets you get for example on the Mini-Gunship, which turns the Gazelle into a bit of a mini-gunship as well, which I can tell you right away is tons of fun to fly. We will also get the Mistral infrared guided short-range anti-air missile as an option in the future, but they are not in yet. As a trade-off, the L version's sighting system is a lot simpler than that on the M. You don't get the huge Vivian sight you have on the M version's roof. Instead, the L has the smaller ASOS sight, which is overall less powerful and does not have infrared sight, so it can't be used at night. Otherwise, the sight is used just like the Vivian sight on the M, but in the gunship version the L does not have guided weapons that would need the sighting system to guide them anyway. Should we get the hot missiles for the L version as well, you would guide them the same way than you do on the M version. The smaller and lighter sight of course means the L version can carry more payload before it is overloaded. Other than that, the two versions are pretty similar. You get a new armament control panel for the guns and rockets of course in the L, and some other things in the cockpit moved to other places, but other than that they are very similar. With the cannon and rocket armament you get on the L version of this helicopter, you will of course fight completely differently than with the missiles on the M, more akin to a close-range knife fight than the long-range sniping you do with the M and its hot missiles. Somewhat similar to what you get from the Mini-Gunship as I said, though a lot more agile, and flying the agile Gazelle in that way is an absolute blast. Now I plan to incorporate the Gazelle L as well as Mini-Gunships in some co-op combined arms missions in the future, as a light attack or recon helicopter. I hope I can show you some of that in the not too distant future. This is of course for a low threat environment with lower tech threats like machine guns, non-radar guided anti-air weapons and the like. A few months ago that would not have worked out well for the helicopter even in such a lower technology environment, but thankfully there was another fix to DCS World itself a few months ago that changed that. Now before that fix, all AI ground units in DCS would engage flying units extremely accurately. Even normal infantry, or say the 50 caliber mounted on the roof of a Humvee, would engage and hit aircraft with a consistent accuracy that made radar guided systems look bad. That made making missions for lower tech aircraft, especially helicopters that lacked standoff weapons, very difficult, even if you specifically designed the missions to have lower tech threats. When I did my UE video that was still the case, and that made making a mission for this video very difficult. Thankfully since then this has been fixed and ground units with unguided armaments or manually guided weapons act and hit like you would expect them to now, which makes helicopters like the Gazelle L with cannons and rockets, the Mini-Gunships, or also the trainer/light attack aircraft we have in game and will be introduced in the future like the AT-27 a lot more viable. Of course, ground units can and will still hit you. You still have to be careful, and you can still get shot down by that one golden bullet. But now it is at a realistic level. Well then, let's take a look at the mission in the Gazelle L. This one is pretty straightforward. A German Panzergrenadier unit is approaching Kutaisi from the north, and tasked to break through enemy defenses into the city and secure this bridge over the Rioni River to open up supply lines to the east of the city. We in our Gazelle are to provide air support, attack targets of opportunity, and simply help the Panzergrenadier unit take its objective. Enemy forces are expected to consist of light armored vehicles and infantry. We of course have a 20mm cannon with 240 rounds, mixed armor piercing and high explosive, enough to take out lightly armored targets and infantry, as well as 8 Snap 68mm rockets, which I plan to use sparingly as I have only a few of them. While the enemy armored units are expected to be light, our own are as well. We have Marder infantry fighting vehicles as our most potent ground unit with machine cannon and machine gun armament, as well as Fuchs and M113 armored personnel carriers, which have 30 and 50 caliber machine guns respectively. Our own infantry units will dismount the APCs at the edge of the city and then slowly advance towards the bridge objective, clearing all enemies in their path, but till then our armored units will advance at a fast pace without unloading the infantry, so they will fight on their own. Now, while my helicopter can do some damage with its armament, it is no Apache, so I have to be a bit careful when I attack enemy units. I plan to do quick hit and run attacks, attacking targets when they are focused on our ground units and are not aiming at me, and then hopefully distracting those targets as our own units advance. Any friendly vehicle that does not make it to the city means less friendly infantry in the city of course, so it would be good not to lose any armored personnel carriers till we arrive there. Now one thing I want to also quickly mention here, because it is a question that often comes up in the comments. The exact type and position of enemy units are randomized in a mission like this, and will be different with every try. How different and within which borders depends on the mission of course, and I will make a quick tutorial on randomization in the editor soon. But for now, back to the mission. Now, as I do a quick flyby of our ground units and take a closer look at them, I do notice that they are pointing their turrets south, towards the build-up area our units are approaching at the moment, so I decide to climb a bit and start to head that way to take a look. And as I do so, I can spot some enemy vehicles behind this little suburban area which we have to pass through behind the buildings in the open, and I make my way there to identify them and attack them if possible. But I do change that plan real quick as I see a lot of green stuff coming my way, and I don't like that any more than Will Smith did. Green traces indicate Russian 50 cal Dushka or even 14.5mm guns, which I would prefer not to get hit by too much, so I head back towards our Panzergrenadier units to synchronize my attack with theirs once they are in range. At least the tracers from the heavy machine guns of the enemy units helped pinpoint the position of those units nicely, and as I start to turn around, our Marders are about to engage them. They have cannon armament, but the enemy heavy machine guns can also be a threat to our APCs, so I want to get back into the mix quickly to reduce the risk of losing a vehicle to the enemy fire this early. Also, our units are firing on the move, which reduces their accuracy. I approach from left, trying to use the riverbed and the buildings as cover as I get closer, and then pop up and attack, hopefully without the enemy units expecting me suddenly popping up, as they are now also being shot at by our ground units as well. Now I fire at one of the closer enemy vehicles first, which pops a smoke grenade, and then I switch to a second vehicle which is crossing the street at this moment. As I hoped, the enemy vehicles were focused on our armored units as I popped up, but now they start to attack me again and I roll left and get out of here again. I take a hit or two, but nothing serious. I try to stay fast for Gazelle standards anyway, to make a hard target for them. I had some more tracers flying after me as I egressed the area, but that means whatever was shooting after me at that point wasn't shooting at our ground units instead. Now, as I turn towards the enemy again, I start to approach alongside our armored personnel carriers, and it seems our onslaught is going well so far. And at least 2 enemy vehicles are already burning in the distance. I pop up again to get a better view of the area, and following some traces I can see some APCs further behind. So I start to fire at one of the enemy APCs which is further behind in the field, but then I notice that I'm about to fly over some enemy infantry which I did not notice earlier, so I break off again. Even an AK round can shoot you down if it hits the right spot. So I decide to better get some distance again and set up another attack run to avoid flying directly over enemy infantry units while I attack something else. As I start to point towards the enemy again though, I can see that the enemy armored unit, a PTR-80 I guess, I was attacking earlier, is still up despite my attacks and being under fire by our APCs as well. And this thing does have a 14.5mm heavy machine gun, which can destroy our ground units, so I would prefer that thing to be dead sooner rather than later. I figure maybe that one needs a little bit more convincing than a 20mm round, and I switch to my rocket pod instead. Though I don't know how effective they are at this point, as I have not used the 68mm rockets before. I don't get a good hit, and the APC is popping smoke again, so I can't see well enough for a quick follow-up rocket, so I close in and switch to my cannon again and fire a few more rounds at it at close range, which does finally finish the PTR off, and I evade to the left again as there is still some infantry around which was firing at me. But they don't do so for long, as our charging armored units finish them off quickly now that they are close enough. So we broke through this little first defensive line, and all our units are still up it seems, which makes me quite happy. I can see all the way to the bend in the road that leads around the hill into the main city, and no more resistance here. I can't see around the hill though. Just around that hill is the area where our APCs unload the infantry and then advance through the city towards the objective, which is the bridge. I wait a bit till the Panzergrenadiere are in position and ready to attack, and then I risk poking my nose around the corner to take a look. As I clear the hill and get a view of the area behind it, I spot one or two vehicles and turn around again to avoid being hit, planning to again synchronize my attacks with the armored unit's attack. Looking back, I can see a few enemy vehicles above the road into the city. By now our infantry has begun to deploy though, and is in a firefight already, and our armor is rolling again too, and I don't want to miss the fun, so I come around to get back into the action. The fight is in full swing by now, and there are lots of tracers flying around, pinpointing the position of units firing them. I decide to do a quick rocket attack on one of the armored personnel carriers above the road, and I fire 2 snaps at him, but I don't get a good hit at the target. I'm not sure if a close miss with those is good enough to do damage. In any case, I break again after this run and start to get some distance again, as I still have tracers flying past me, so I want to get a little bit further away. Having had little luck with my rocket so far, I decide to switch back to my gun for my next attack run. I have to be careful about not wasting too much cannon rounds though, as my cannon ammo is also limited. I took off with 240 rounds. But for now I still have a good amount left, as I was only firing short bursts, and after turning back towards the fight, I start to join the Marder APCs and blasting enemy vehicles with cannon fire. I thrust target one of the targets above the street again. I fire a few cannon bursts at this target, and after he blows up, being focused down by multiple cannons, I switch to another vehicle I can see behind it, a MTLB by the looks of it on the other side of the road, before breaking left again and extending. The MTLB was on fire as I flew over it, so he is out of the fight as well. Now our units keep advancing while I gain some distance again. I try to get far enough away that any units that were firing at me stop doing so before I turn around again and attack again. Now, with our infantry in play in this fight, as well as our vehicles and my helicopter, we gain the upper hand here fast, and break the resistance at this position. When I am turned around again, the enemy vehicles are taken out, and few of our units are about to crest the ridgeline, and then start to move down towards the city. Now I decide to do so myself, and I switch to rockets again. In the city, infantry with RPGs is a big threat to our vehicles, and the rockets work well against those, I hope. The enemy infantry units are hard to spot though, so I don't notice at first that I have enemy infantry units already close in front of me, and when I do notice them, I point my nose at them for a quick snapshot with a rocket, and then I break left again to avoid their return fire. This time I want to re-engage faster though. First of all, there don't seem to be any vehicles around at this point with heavy machine guns, and our APCs are coming over the hill right in front of those infantry units which might have RPGs. So I turn around to attack them again faster than I did so before. Sadly, at least one of the enemy units did in fact have an RPG launcher and took out one of our Marder units. I retaliate with a rocket of my own, but I also take some hits in the process. Luckily, I don't take any real damage that I can see at this point. The thing with those small rifle rounds is, they may just punch a lot of tiny holes in the tail boom and do nothing if they hit nothing important, but if they do hit the right spot, they can also bring down the helicopter with just one hit into the engine or transmission. But I did get lucky here. So when disengaging from the attack run this time, I make sure that I gain a little bit more distance from the infantry units that were attacking me to make sure they lose sight of me this time. Now our own infantry units were quite useful at cleaning up enemy infantry units at the fight at the city entrance, but now our own infantry units take their time to get moving, a lot longer than I would have hoped they would, and our armored units quickly outrun them, which makes them vulnerable in the city. And that means if I want any of our APCs to survive this whole thing, I have to attack a little bit more aggressive in the future and take out some more enemy units along the way. Now I fire another quick burst at the location of the infantry units I saw earlier, and then I decide to start to do a quick scouting run towards our main objective, the bridge, which is close by air, but the ground units will take a little while to get there. So I start to fly ahead to get a feel of how much resistance there still is. I follow the road at first and speed up to make a harder target for enemy units. Following the road a bit, I can spot one enemy vehicle on the road itself that leads to the objective, and one or two more at the bridge, before I start to take evasive action again and extend again as I see some tracers flying past my window and I have to turn around. I did not see much infantry on the scouting run, but that does not mean much as they are easy to miss. But I do know the location of a few enemy vehicles. Now I would prefer to attack infantry as I consider the RPGs the biggest threat to the ground units in the city, but I can't fly slow enough to reliably spot them with the enemy vehicles shooting at me, so I decide to attack those instead. I want to do a few attack runs on the enemy vehicles in the city to hopefully take them out before our own ground units get in range, because our own vehicles are at least much more likely to survive versus enemy infantry with RPGs if they don't have enemy vehicles to worry about at the same time too. Since I saw an enemy APC sitting right at the middle of the road leading to the objective, I decide to follow along this road again and attack this one first, since he should be easy to see and an easy target to attack. Flying back down into the city, I have trouble finding him again though. He is not where I expected him to be, which is right on the road at the bend towards the objective. As I get closer to the bridge though, I suddenly see a muzzle flash right below me. The enemy unit must have moved, because now the enemy armored unit, a BRDM scout car, is sitting next to the road instead of on it and closer to us than he was before. I fired a few quick bursts at the scout car, but not enough to take him out. I only saw one direct hit on the scout car itself, and then I keep going after two more targets set up at the bridge, MTLB armored personnel carriers. Again, not enough hits to destroy them, and I am worried about my cannon ammo now. I have only 55 rounds left for the cannon. Also, as I was attacking the BRDM and MTLBs, I could see multiple infantry units around the bridge too. With my cannon low, I switched to my last few rockets, deciding to fire them off first and then make the most of my last cannon rounds. The first rocket I fire hits short, but the second one is right on target for a change, taking the MTLB out. Now my last rocket I fire at another APC next to the road again, but this one goes wide, and I am down to a few cannon rounds again. As I fly back towards my own ground units, I think about heading back to base rearming and coming back with more ammo, but thinking about it, I figured that by the time I get done doing that and I am back here, this thing is over one way or another, so I want to expend my last ammo before I do so. So I start to turn around and head back towards the bridge. With one of the MTLBs at the bridge destroyed by my rocket, there are only 3 enemy vehicles left that I know of at this point, which does not mean there aren't any others, but in theory my 55 20mm rounds should be enough to destroy them if I fire them precisely enough. The main threat at this point for me as well as our ground units is the BRDM scout car as far as vehicles go, as it has a heavy machine gun while the MTLBs have only rifle caliber guns. But I have the first MTLB already lined up, so I engage it. I want to destroy them too, so they can't distract our ground units while they are fighting the infantry. I fire 3 quick bursts and this time I managed to take it out. After taking that last vehicle I can see at the bridge out, I turn around towards where the other 2 Rs I currently am aware of, the MTLB and the BRDM scout car, but from this position here they are hidden behind the building. So I plan to get closer and pop up over the building to attack them. But as I get closer to them I have to take evasive action as I take a hit from infantry which was below me. Now I can also see the first 2 friendly armored units coming my way, which I'm at first happy about, thinking they can help me take out the enemy armored units, but then I see that they're both Fuchs-wheeled armored personnel carriers, which to my knowledge have a 30 caliber machine gun, not a 50, and that is not enough to take out the lightly armored BRDM. While the BRDM does have a heavy machine gun that can take out the Fuchs, so I have to turn around and attack it right away before it can take out my 2 APCs. I get a few more hits on the BRDM in this attack and it starts to burn and blow up shortly after. So I manage to take it out. But I take a few more hits from the infantry's AK rifles in the process. By now I must have a good amount of holes in this little helicopter. I also do another quick attack run on the second MTLB, but I don't get a hit in this one. Thankfully the MTLB isn't much of a threat to our ground units anyway, as it has only a single small machine gun. And by now our own infantry units started to get moving as well, though they are still far behind the armored personnel carriers. I do 1 or 2 more attack runs on this last enemy vehicle and fire my last cannon rounds at it, and I do get a hit or 2 on it and our armored units take it out shortly after that. Now after that though I'm completely out of ammo, so I have to start thinking about heading back home to rearm. However, our own ground units are so close to the objective by now that when I do start going back to rearm, I don't get very far until I get the message that the bridge is secured. With the enemy vehicles taking out, our units have cleared up the infantry and taken over the bridge, so this is it for this mission. Well, that was a short update on some upcoming things for the Gazelle module. Keep in mind that this is still in beta, so not everything works already on the L version of the Gazelle and with its new weapon systems. I don't know when the L version will be implemented in the live version of the game, but it is certainly a fun addition to the Gazelle module, which I already like quite a bit. Well, and this is it for this video. As always, I hope it was entertaining, thanks for watching, and maybe I'll see you next time.